I'm going to be really super honest here. I messed up. Hi everyone, it's Tash and welcome to another recipe video. And today we are making a Pandan Chiffon Onde-Onde cake. What's an Onde-Onde, you ask? This is an Onde-Onde. Give you a little closer view. An Onde-Onde is basically a sticky rice cake filled with gula melaka soaked coconut. It's flavoured and coloured with green pandan leaf and often coated in desiccated coconut, and it's super popular in Malaysia, Indonesia and Singapore. This is one of my favourite Malaysian snacks as a half Chinese Malaysian myself. I used to beg mum to get these at the supermarket, and this is a super old, super traditional snack. If you happen to live in London like I do, then lots of Asian supermarkets stock it. And maybe one day I'll make them from scratch because I know how to make sticky rice cake. I know how to make the filling for this because actually I've made the filling for this before, but for kuih dadar, which I'll post the link up now, up top and down below. Those are those thin Malaysian crepes that are stuffed with the gula melaka syrup soaked coconut. So I could probably make this too, but I've just never tried before because they are so easy to buy. And I'm lazy. And today, instead of making these from scratch, I'm going to be making a more modern cake version of it, with pandan chiffon as our cake base, and I'm going to make some cute little cupcakes, and the actual filling is going to become the topping, along with, of course, some buttercream, because you can't have cupcakes without buttercream. Well, you can, but they'd be a bit sad. So I'm actually going to take a bite out of this so you can see inside. Excuse me, this is very chewy. And in the middle, you can see that gula melaka soaked shredded coconut, which is so moist, so caramelly rich, amazing. Now the reason why I screwed up was the quantities. I set out in my head thinking I am going to make 12 cupcakes. But then last minute I decided actually I don't need that many cupcakes in my life today, I'm going to halve my recipe and make 6. And then I forgot to halve the recipe of my filling. And at the same time, even as I was making the cupcakes, for some reason my brain reverted back to the number 12, which is why you're going to see me lay out 12 cases, even though I'd already decided to halve the recipe, because I have terrible short-term memory. So we get rid of those, I've got my lovely 6 cupcakes, and then I make the filling. And then I forget again I've halved the recipe, and I make the full amount of filling, so I have 12 cupcakes worth of filling, and only 6 cupcakes. Good thing by the time when it comes to making the buttercream, I remember to halve that, but I did end up with too much filling, which isn't a problem really. I can just roll them up in some crepes and have them kuih dadar style. But in terms of today's recipe, it might make things a bit confusing, so I'm going to put both quantities at the top when I'm listing the ingredients, whether you want to make 6 cupcakes or 12 cupcakes. So now that's all out of the way, let's go to the kitchen and see how it's done. First, let's preheat our oven to 170 degrees C, and yes, that's about 10 degrees cooler than we usually do for cake. Now we're going to separate 2 eggs. Let's set our yolks aside for the minute. And we're going to do this meringue style. So I'm going to grab my electric beater and we're going to whisk this up until it forms stiff peaks. Nice. This is the real test. You can tip the bowl around and the egg white doesn't come out. Then it's ready. And to that we're going to add 50 grams of caster sugar and we're going to whisk this up until it's nice and glossy too. Nice. Let's set this aside. It's the return of the yolks. Right, we're going to deal with these next. To this I'm going to add 35 grams of caster sugar, 60 millilitres of full fat coconut milk, 30 millilitres of vegetable oil, about half a teaspoonful of pandan paste, maybe a little bit less, whoops, well that was about half a teaspoonful, and also 60 grams of self-raising flour. And we're going to give this all a good whiz together. Awesome, that was nice and quick. Now we're going to take our egg whites and we're going to fold them in. First I'm going to take a chunk, maybe about a quarter of it, and I'm going to start to roughly stir this in. At this point you don't have to be too careful because you're just loosening up the mixture a bit, making it more acceptable for that egg white. Now we're going to fold all the rest of this in. And just when it's combined you want to stop. And then we're going to fill these equally with the help of my trusty ice cream scoop. And now we're going to bake these for 15 to 20 minutes, probably more around 20. So that was exactly 20 minutes, and they do puff up quite a bit in the oven, but afterwards they will sink back down to be a bit flatter, so let's let these cool down completely before we continue. Here we have 120 grams, 120 millilitres of coconut milk. Wow, my brain just fried a bit just then. Full fat, by the way, maximum flavour. To add 150 grams of gula melaka, and it usually comes in a hard round cylinder block like this, and I chopped it up just to make life easier. Little pinch of salt, and I have one pandan leaf here, which I'm going to shred up a little bit, tie in a knot to make it a bit more easy to handle. Make sure all those lovely flavors come up. Flavors, rather. Wow, I really can't speak today. Go. And I'm going to cook this on about a medium heat until all of the sugar has dissolved. Once the sugar is pretty much all dissolved, we're going to give this pandan leaf a good squeeze. Going to get some chopsticks over here, and we're going to take it out. Now we can discard it. Whoops, my knot has unravelled, but that is okay. Give it a good shake. And this is done now, we can throw this in the bin. As for this, we're going to cook 125 grams of desiccated coconut in this. And we're going to keep stirring it until it's all well absorbed, and then continue to cook it for just a minute or two. And that is our filling done. Now this is quite hot and not very fun to work with, so we're going to let this cool down completely. To make the buttercream, I have 75 grams of unsalted butter here, which is softened at room temperature. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt to it, and we're going to whip it up until it's really light and creamy. Now that the butter's gone all pale, we're going to gradually add in 125 grams of icing sugar, and we're going to do it bit by bit so that it doesn't go anywhere. I really hate using icing sugar. There's always a cloud of it everywhere, and you're breathing it in, and the air tastes of icing sugar, and then you get it all over your clothes in the kitchen. Anyway, do it bit by bit to avoid most of that icing cloud. Lastly, we're going to add half a tablespoonful of milk. Now I have another bowl here because we're going to take about half of this, just a couple of spoonfuls really. Pop it in that bowl, and we're just going to add a couple of drops of this pandan paste to it. Let's whiz that in too. Nice. Now for the next part, I'm going to lay down some cling film, which is all stuck to itself of course, because cling film is gonna cling film. I'm going to put a stripe of our green pandan buttercream on one side, and on the other side we'll put our plain white buttercream. Now we're going to roll them up together like a sausage. That's our icing sausage done. Now I've prepared a piping bag with a closed star tip. I'm going to cut the end off of our sausage, just one side mind. And we can pop this, cut side down, in our bag, just like this. And then we can close this up. Now to decorate our cupcakes, I'm going to be piping a swirl around the edge of each. And that was the perfect amount for 6 cupcakes, but remember when we made this sweet gula melaka coconut filling, that is going to go in the centre. And I'm going to carefully spoon on to the top the filling. And here we're only actually going to use half of the filling we made, because if you remember, I accidentally made double. Or at least I made enough for 12 cupcakes when actually I only wanted to make 6 cupcakes. Another messier way you can do it is to grab a bunch of it in your hands squish it into a ball and pop it in the top, and then you can flatten it down. That's a bit neater, it just looks a little less organic. And finally, we're just going to sprinkle over a little untainted, we haven't done anything to it, desiccated coconut. These are so cute! I love the little swirls that the piping bag created, that piping tip created. They do kind of look onde-onde-ish. Right, let's unravel one. This is a very delicate operation. And to try not to destroy the cupcake, that is our main goal. I've never used these cupcake holders before. I couldn't find any of the normal ones, only these fancy ones. And they thankfully are releasing the cupcake, but because I want it picture perfect, I'm being very careful. I also kind of want to use this as the plate itself, so I can be lazy and not get a plate, even though it'll literally take me 2 seconds to get a plate. I am that lazy. And I'm just going to go for another close-up because look at how insanely fluffy that is. That is our chiffon cake. Super bouncy. And here I am cutting into the cake. I'm being particularly careful because this is very top heavy. That sponge cake is super light and the coconut on top is super heavy. But obviously you'll just be biting into it. Oh, that looks absolutely incredible. So fluffy, and it smells delicious too. Look at that. Oh, it feels so pillowy soft. I love chiffon cake so much. It's quite top heavy because obviously our cake is very light and airy, and then we have some buttercream on top and the very heavy gula melaka soaked desiccated coconut. So be careful when you hold it, otherwise it's going to want to topple over. In fact, I'm going to put this on the plate like a sensible person. This has been tempting me for ages. Oh, hello son. This has been tempting me for ages, so I'm just going to pick it up and take a bite. So cheers. Oh, it's quite wide. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That gula melaka palm sugar coconut filling is so rich and caramelised. And you'll be glad to add that little bit of salt to the filling and to the buttercream as well, because that cuts through the sweetness a bit. The cake is super, super pillowy, cloudy, soft, and you've got that fragrant pandan scented all through. So yes, there you go, Pandan Chiffon Onde-Onde cake. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's recipe video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full written recipe on my blog tashcakes.com. Follow me on Instagram, I'm tashcakes.tastes. Find me on TikTok too, I'm tashcakes there too, but my actual handle is food in slow motion. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I'll see you guys next time. Be good, be nice, and have a good week. Oh, that's so nice, the sun's come out now. There hasn't been any sun for 2 weeks.